Joined in by Chris from the Villa Together podcast. Chris, how are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Thanks. About yourself?
Not too bad. Looking really good in the background there. You've got the old TV on with some Villa stuff in the background with some snow. So it could be a white Christmas. Harry's also here for the away perspective and
invading it again. Lovely.
His questions. Talk about Villa and Wolves. Do you agree with any of that statement? What have you got to add to
that? I suppose Wolves. I think the thing with Wolves is they're probably form-wise that they haven't been playing as well as they know they can do. Certainly against Liverpool, it was a poor performance. But then again, I think Liverpool it was one of those games where Liverpool probably could have picked off a lot of teams in all fairness. I think with the Jimenez injury out, that was a big thing. I think when you look at a lot of the players you've got in your team, if you'd lost a winger, I suppose, or a 10, you probably could bring someone in. You've got Neto or Podence kind of coming in behind the striker, but you losing Jimenez, you lose that focal point. I think that's big. Apart from that, I think Wolves haven't been poor. I think they're I don't want to say they're in transition, but I think they're slightly trying to find their feet in terms of new players coming in. Doherty was a big part of what Nuno built for the last three seasons. Semedo coming in has looked good in some games, poor in others, and he has kind of changed it slightly at times with 4 at the back, which he hasn't really done much in the past. So that is something that, even in the Championship, he didn't really try that much. So trying 4 at the back in the Premier League has tested them slightly. Injuries, obviously Johnny being out as well, it makes it harder because I think one thing about Wolves is that they've got a very good setup and a drilled setup. I suppose, going back to Bielsa, he's got a good setup with Leeds. Nuno's got a good setup with Wolves in terms of everyone knows the job that they're doing, and he's drilled that into them for the last 3 seasons. In particular, last 2 seasons in the Premier League, they've done relatively well. So I think with the players getting injured and others coming in, it does kind of take a bit of time. It does add that kind of transitional element to it. But even then, it's not like, back in the day, we're talking, I don't know, 5-10 years ago when Villa were in the Premier League and Wolves weren't. Back then, I was more confident. I think since we've gone down and kind of come back up, Wolves have overtaken us as the best team in the West Midlands. So, and that still is the case, regardless of our form this season. I think Wolves, I can't see any reason to think why we would beat Wolves. I think it probably would be a closer game than last season. Obviously, last season I think we were poles apart in all fairness, but this season I think it probably is closer. Wolves still probably would edge it in terms of their form. Obviously, taking last season into consideration. So I think to kind of question it and say Wolves are the poorest that I've seen them. He obviously hasn't watched a lot of football because you guys will know Wolves dropping down to the Championship when they did those years ago, dropping to League One under Dean Saunders. Wolves were poor then, so and they are poles apart from the football then. On their day, Wolves can beat anyone, so I totally do not agree with what he said.
Harry, I think you're going to ask about the derby and how it's become a little bit more significant.
Yeah, how do you see it, Chris? Because as you said, we didn't play each other for years, but I'd say in recent years, especially under Nuno for Wolves, that Championship season when we got promoted, and obviously we played you twice last year, it feels like it's got a bit more spicy, hasn't it? I think as a Wolves fan, I didn't really look at Villa as someone I don't like, to be honest, but now it's starting to get a bit more heated between the fan bases, isn't it?
I think part of that possibly comes with what happened in the Championship. I think obviously we dropped down, and I think a lot of our fans, I'll put my hands up, I expected it as well to be a lot easier than it was. But I think we all agree he's a very, very tough league to get out of, because you've got a lot of teams who've got Premier League experience. So, you come up against difficult opposition. But I think because of the kind of, I don't know, rivalry possibly that we kind of developed whilst in the Championship, that still seems to be there.
Because the other two are fucking useless, isn't it? That's the reason. Blues are awful. They've got no chance. And Albion, I don't know why they bother. They're just here to make up the numbers.
Well, yeah, pretty much. I mean, those are our traditional rivalries, aren't they? And we had those few years down in the Championship, and obviously, we beat Birmingham more times than not. And when we didn't, we drew against them. Obviously, West Brom have been poor for a few years now, in all fairness. Obviously, they've kind of continued that in the Premier League. So, yeah, totally agree. I think that probably what it is, because you've got
so.
It's no good. It's no good having a shot at a team that, like Kiddy Harriers or whatever, having a shot at a team that's below you. You've got to go for the teams that are on level par, which, with both of us being in the Premier League, you've got to kind of go for that as the two of us being the rivals geographically and being in the same league, really.
How do you see the battle in the middle of the pitch? Obviously, Jack Grealish, flavour of the month. Obviously, starting for England on occasion now. He's clearly one of the best players in that position in the league. I'm sure you agree as a Villa fan. As a Wolves fan, we obviously don't like talking about him, but sometimes you do have to. He is a class player, isn't he, Harry? And, he could be the difference. But Chris, for you, do you think that battle between maybe him and what will possibly be Neves be quite a juicy one?
The thing with Jack these days is that he plays off the left wing, and I know he floats, but that's where he tends to pick up the ball a lot. Drifts out to the left, comes off the touch line probably 10, 15 yards inside, and likes to pick up that space there. And I think what's good for him is that it makes it hard for the opposition players to know who should be picking him up. You think, first and foremost, should it be the fullback? But then when he drifts inside, the centre midfielders or sometimes the centre half comes into it. So it makes it hard for him to pick it up. So I think he'd probably directly be more up against maybe Semedo. And I don't know, Willy Bolly, possibly right-sided centre half.
Yeah.
But I think the thing with Jack is he's quite clever in his play, in terms of that he would push himself more on. He's not going to try his luck against Willy Bolly, because in all fairness, Willy Bolly's he's the top defender. So he probably would push more on Semedo, try and exploit the space behind him. And then the kind of battle in the middle of the park would be more so kind of likes of Neves and John McGinn possibly. But I mean, with Jack Grealish, he literally floats all over the place. You look at his heat map after every game, and he's kind of touched the ball almost every blade of grass all over the pitch.
Harry,
I just want to ask you, mate, about Ollie Watkins. Like, when he come in, I remember when you signed him, I remember looking at him thinking, I don't think he's going to do any good, but he's got off to an absolute flyer. Do you rate him highly? And I bet the Villa fans love him, don't know the way he started.
Yeah, the thing is, I think last season we watched, I think a lot of Villa fans did it. We watched the playoff final. We were linked with Ben Rama, whether it was lazy journalism or not. There was heavy links with him, Watkins, possibly a couple of others. And I hadn't seen a lot of Brentford, in all fairness. I watched their last couple of games because I was hoping that they'd go up rather than Baggies. And somehow it was one of them. It was like West Brom. It was, you imagine them doing a 800-meter race, and they fell just in front of the finish line, and then kind of a bit of their hair just got them over the line or something. It was like that, because they didn't win neither of their last two games, but they still managed to get promoted. But I watched Brentford in last couple of games, and in particular the playoff final, and I was surprised by Ollie Watkins. To be fair, I kind of thought he was a bit more of a pace merchant or a poacher, but his hold-up play is very good, and I noticed that against Fulham, and that's been quite good for us. I think we had obviously a number of different strikers in the Championship, Tammy Abraham being the pick of the bunch. So I think when we got promoted, we were looking for someone similar to Tammy Abraham, in terms of that's big and can hold up the ball, and also has got a bit of pace to get in behind. We bought Wesley last season, who showed glimpses but wasn't particularly great. And then Ollie Watkins came in, and in all fairness, he kind of ticks more of those boxes than Wesley. He's got a bit of pace, holds up the ball really well, and he's been good for us. He kind of exactly what we need. I think the games he's been quiet in are the games when Villa have been quiet, generally where we've lost, because we haven't got the ball to him enough. He does well drifting out the left, and obviously he's taken his goals well. In all fairness, I think he's got around a 50% conversion rate this season, something around there, which is fairly decent. I mean, I don't think he's had a lot of chances or a lot of shots on goal, but obviously, a hat-trick against Liverpool, got a couple against Arsenal. A couple of here and there.
Everyone got a hat trick
well
against Liverpool, didn't they? It seemed.
Yeah, in that game it was free for all. But he scored some good goals, and I think you look at the goals that he scored as well. He's got a couple of good headers, left foot, right foot, coming in off the left, a couple of kind of poachers finishes. And it's nice to see having a striker that you can kind of rely on. I suppose it's similar for you guys in terms of you've gone through a lot of strikers over the years, and you kind of, I suppose, you fell on the right one, which was Raul Jimenez.
Obviously, he's not going to be playing a part, but if we just go in for a score prediction, Chris.
I'm going to go for 2-1 to Villa.
Okay, well, wish I hadn't had you on. Best of bad luck, of course, for the weekend. We'll catch up with you latter end of the season, Chris, if that's all right.
Yep, definitely. Yep, nice one.
Cheers, Chris.
Nice one. Cheers.